It's your man Jay Graves Report, and welcome to the College Football Weekly Wrap-Up, Week 13. Y'all know how we get it in, so let's get it in. Wrapping up the top 5 ball games of the weekend, so let's get right to it. Now, I know you see this suede I got on today, bro. It's cold outside, and only the players can wear suede. Don't get out there and be a novice and try to do this at home, bro, because you will get pulled over by the player police. Hey, let's move on to the first ball game now. We go down to the Big 12. We got number 7, Baylor, goes down to Fort Worth to play number 19, TCU. Now, Baylor broke my heart this weekend, bro. They went down a couple of weeks ago. Then they went dull on me this weekend. I picked Baylor to win this game, but Trayvon Boykin and company shows up, beat these boys in double overtime, 28-21. Now, Trayvon Boykin was out last week with an ankle injury, but they heavily taped that joint this weekend, and he went to work on these boys. He put up 148 yards, 2 touchdowns in the air, then he ran for another touchdown. Hey, it is what it is. Baylor is dull. They went dull, so they had no chance of trying to win a Big 12, hoping that Oklahoma State wasn't going to wet the bed in Bedlam, but we'll get to that one later. So let's move on to the next ball game, because nobody cares about TCU or Baylor. Both them duns got 2 losses. Now, let's move on to the next ball game. Now, we're going to go down to the Big 10. The game, the one that everybody was waiting on. Top 10 matchup. Harbaugh versus Urban Meyer. Michigan went out here and wet the bed on these boys. Hey, number 8, Ohio State, goes down to the big house to play number 10, Michigan. Now, old Juicy Mouth Zeke Elliott went to work on these boys. He had a whole pack of doggone Starbursts and Bubblicious in his thigh pads. He carried the ball 30 times, 214 yards, 2 touchdowns. That done went to work on these boys. Now, all I'm trying to figure out is, how in the world does Michigan got these boys at the crib, top 10 matchup, and completely soiled the mattress? I mean, they had one of the best defenses in America, but it didn't matter because Ohio State went in there, took care of business, thinking that if they could win this ball game and Penn State could happen to upset Michigan State, they could get back in the hunt, get back to the Big Ten championship game, etc. They got no help from Penn State because Michigan State went up there and beat the brakes off them boys, 55-16. No chance. So now Michigan State goes to the Big Ten championship to play Iowa. We'll talk about that at the end. But, hey, Jim Harbaugh, you need to retire them doggone khaki pants, bro. Why don't you try tweed? Why don't you try some tweed pants next year, bro? Hager slacks, because the khakis don't work and you got embarrassed at the crib. They beat the brakes off these boys up at the doggone big house. Hey, let's move on to the next ball game. Now, we're going to go down to the Sunshine State. We at number 13, Florida State, shows up to play number 12, Florida. Now, this was an interesting ball game because going into this ball game, Florida only had 1 loss. They already scheduled to play in the SEC championship. If they would have won this ball game, they still got a shot to play for a national championship. But that didn't happen. Chief Osceola and Renegade went up in the joint and beat the brakes off these boys 27-2. Now, this is the 3rd time that Florida State has gone to the swamp and wreaked havoc, beat these boys. Don't make sense. Dalvin Cook went to work, had 183 yards, 2 touchdowns on these boys. Here's the problem with Florida. Florida has no offense at this point. They got a great defense, or they had a great defense. They gave up 27 points in this ball game. Trayon Harris, like I said in the preview, indecisive, inaccurate, was dug, got sacked 4 times. Now, if they could have won this ball game, dude, they still had a shot to get in because they only had 1 loss. And if they should happen to upset Alabama, they could have played for a national championship. But that ain't going to happen, bro. They nowhere in the world they're going to upset Alabama regardless because these duns can't throw the football. In order to be able to beat Alabama, you got to be able to throw the football. 90% of the teams in the SEC don't throw the football. The teams that throw the football well beat Alabama. Let's break it down. Alabama was beaten by Ole Miss this year. Why? Ole Miss and Chad Kelly lead the conference in passing offense. Who beat Alabama last year? Ole Miss. Who beat Alabama? Who beat the brakes off of Alabama in the doggone Final Four last year? Ohio State, Cordell Jones. Who beat the brakes off of them in the Sugar Bowl the year before? Oklahoma, because all those teams had one thing in common. They could throw the football. Whoever Alabama plays in the Final Four, and we'll get to that in a minute, that can throw the football will beat Alabama. Listen to what I'm saying to you. But in this joint, Florida State went to work on these boys. Chief Osceola and Renegade rolled all out, tore the joint up. Let's move on to the next ball game. This is the one I want to talk about. Number 6, Notre Dame goes out to play number 9, Stanford. Stanford wins the ball game at the end of the game on a field goal, beat them 38-36. Now we got all these boys running around here in the state of Indiana upset because Notre Dame is not going to be in. I've been telling you boys all year that Notre Dame wasn't getting in. Notre Dame had a good team. However, they only played 2 ball games, bruh. And the 2 ball games they played, they lost. That means go somewhere, hey, in my Victor Sweet voice, go to the little kids table and wait on me. Now we don't have to hear nothing else from the Notre Dame fans. They whining all day today, hollering and screaming about how they would be able to put points on Oklahoma and put points on Alabama. And so it don't matter that you can put points on the board, bruh. Everybody can put points on the board. Can you win the game? You didn't win the game. That means you go somewhere and sit down. And the leprechaun out there fighting got arrested. That Dun's still out in Palo Alto right now. Because he out there fighting, don't know how to act. They still looking for touchdown Jesus, though. Hey, let's move on to the next ball game. Now, we going down to Bedlam. We got number 3. Oklahoma goes into Stillwater to play number 11. Oklahoma State. Now, I told you boys going into this ball game, it wasn't going to be no game. Why? Because they should stop calling it Bedlam. It's not Bedlam. Bedlam, the definition for Bedlam is uproar and confusion. Who's confused around here, bruh? OU is 85-18-7 against these boys. So it's only fitting that they beat the brakes off of them last night. 58-23 beat the brakes off Oklahoma State. The Oklahoma State cowpokes. Stop calling it a rivalry game. It's no longer a rivalry game. The 4-headed monster went to work on these boys. They used to have a 3-headed monster. Now Joe Nixon is in the mix. Now it's a 4-headed monster. They got Baker Mayfield. Came out here, went 17-25, 180 yards, 2 touchdowns. Sterling Shepard, 10 catches, 87 yards, a touchdown. Then you got Joe Nixon. Came out the woodwork on these boys. 14 carries, 136 yards, 2 touchdowns. And Samaje Perine goes for 17 carries, 131 yards, and another 2 touchdowns, bruh. I'm just telling you right now, the best team in the college football playoff, as we speak right now, is Oklahoma. Because they balanced on both sides of the ball. They can throw the football, they can run the football, and the defense is nuts. Now, let's talk about the top 4 right now. Top 4, like I said last week, is still the same. You got Clemson at number 1. Iowa at number 2. I don't know how these boys, Paul Feinbaum, all these dumb got Iowa at number 4. Iowa's number 2 because they undefeated. It is what it is. Don't matter if you like them or not, if you impressed with them or not. They're in a Power 5 conference. They undefeated. You can't do nothing but put them at number 2. Then you got Oklahoma, number 3. Right now, they playing better than anybody. And then you got Alabama. But let's talk about this. It ain't a shoo-in that this is going to be the Final Four. Why? Because Clemson still has to play North Carolina in the ACC championship. North Carolina only has 1 loss. I keep trying to tell you, boys, what are you going to do when Clemson loses to North Carolina, like they will? I'm telling you right now, they're going to lose. These duns darn near lost to South Carolina yesterday, bruh. They barely got out of there alive. North Carolina is rolling right now, bro. They got a dual threat at quarterback, and it's nuts. So what happens when North Carolina beats these boys? They playing in the same conference, got the same record, and they'll be the ACC champs. Don't tell me you can put somebody else in there if they beat Clemson. Now, also, let's move on to the Big Ten championship. You got Iowa, still got to play Michigan State. Iowa is one-dimensional. All they can do is run the football. Michigan State gonna beat the brakes off of Iowa next week. I'm just telling you right now early so we can get it all out the way. So Michigan State should be in the Final Four when it's all said and done because they will beat Iowa next week. Then you got Oklahoma. Don't play a conference championship game because they won the conference last night. A lot of boys upset about that. They don't play a conference. Let me explain something to you. I've been saying it for 3 weeks there, bruh. They play in the Big 12. It's a round robin. That means that everybody in the conference plays each other. So if you win the games, you win the conference. There's no need to have a Big 12 championship because that conference is set up differently than everybody else. Everybody else, ACC, Big 12, Pac-12, SEC, all those conferences, those teams don't play everybody in the conference. They pick and choose who they play. And then they have an East and a West or a North or a South. So now, if OU wins the conference, they in. Then you got Alabama got to play Florida. Don't worry about Alabama, bro. Alabama going to be there because Florida is done. That game going to be over in the first half because Derrick Henry going to go to work on these boys. He already put 271 up last night. He going to go to work on these boys. That's what it is. Now, all I'm saying is don't think that it's all over yet because Clemson and Iowa gonna get beat. I'm just saying. It's your man Jay Graves Report from TheJayGravesReport.com, or you can hit me up on Twitter at JayGravesReport so you can holler at your boy.